Prime Minister, I'd like some advice, please. What do I say? Oh, they really are panicking, aren't they?
Order. I want to get this question over with. All you're doing is ensuring it goes on forever. Quick question.
Security just dragged the Prime Minister out of Congress. Cameras rolling, microphones live, chaos everywhere. Keir Starmer shouting across the floor as Nigel Farage sat silent, watching it all unfold. Within seconds, headlines flashed. PM loses it live. What began as calm questioning became the most humiliating political moment in modern British history. Farage began with precision. Prime Minister, according to these documents, your office entered informal discussions with Brussels about renewed migration cooperation. Are these reports accurate? His tone was measured, almost surgical. Aides exchanged nervous looks. Starmer didn't respond immediately. Cameras zoomed in. Farage flipped a page. And this memo, signed by your own advisor, suggests an agreement to resettle 12,000 EU asylum applicants in exchange for trade concessions. Do you deny it? Starmer's jaw clenched. These are misrepresentations, he said. But Farage pressed again, voice even. So you are confirming the talks? The Prime Minister leaned forward. I said they are misrepresentations, he repeated, louder this time. The room stirred. Farage looked down at his notes, then backed up. Then please, clarify what exactly was misrepresented. The pressure built. Starmer exhaled sharply, eyes darting toward the cameras. This is grandstanding, he snapped. You're weaponizing half-truths for clout. Farage stayed still. The British people expect clarity, he said. The Prime Minister's voice rose. Don't lecture me on the British people, he shouted, finger stabbing the air. You've spent your life dividing them. The speaker called for calm, but it was too late. The outburst had been caught in perfect broadcast clarity. Every outlet across the Atlantic switched to the feed. Reporters in the press gallery leaned forward, phones recording. Starmer stood, red-faced, shouting across the chamber. You peddle hate and call it patriotism. You don't speak for this country. Security began moving toward the front. Order! The speaker shouted, striking the gavel. The cameras kept rolling as aides whispered into headsets. The Prime Minister ignored every command. You're a disgrace, he yelled. The speaker stood. Prime Minister, you will resume your seat. The crowd gasped. Two officers moved closer. Starmer's microphone cut out, but his voice still carried through the room. Reporters caught fragments. You don't deserve to question me. That chaos was no accident. Hours earlier, Farage had walked into a windowless briefing room surrounded by his advisors. On the table sat one folder marked in bold red, Truth Before Politics. Inside were internal memos from the Home Office, parliamentary ethics notes, and confidential migration data. The goal wasn't debated, it was exposure. Farage's team had planned the confrontation like a military operation. They identified the weak points in Starmer's public record, broken migration pledges, contradictory border statistics, and quiet reversals on asylum policy. Every page in that folder was verified, time-stamped, and cross-referenced. No shouting, Farage had said. Let him implode himself. His advisors warned the tone would be brutal. He'll take the bait, one aide cautioned. Farage's reply was simple. Then the world will see. Cameras were already in position, microphones pre-checked, broadcast rights secured. What followed wasn't an argument, it was demolition under oath. At 11:00 a.m., as the session began, Farage adjusted his tie, nodded once to the speaker, and opened his notes. Across from him, Starmer looked composed but tired. The lights were harsh. The first question landed, factual and pointed. The second followed, sharper. By the third, the Prime Minister's composure cracked. The trap had sprung exactly as planned. Farage's voice stayed even, clinical. Prime Minister, do you acknowledge that migration numbers under your government have reached their highest levels in 40 years? A pause. Cameras focused on Starmer's clenched hands. Are you aware that your administration authorized emergency visas without parliamentary approval? Another pause. A bead of sweat rolled down the Prime Minister's temple. Farage didn't look up from his notes. This isn't rhetoric. These are your documents. When the eruption came, Farage didn't move. He didn't smile or gloat. He waited. His silence amplified Starmer's fury. The meltdown unfolded exactly as predicted. The Prime Minister slammed the table. "I will not be lectured by demagogues hiding behind slogans," he shouted. The Speaker raised his hand for quiet. Farage leaned forward, his tone calm. "These are your own promises, Prime Minister. The people only ask why you broke them." That single line broke whatever restraint remained. Starmer's voice cracked. "You're twisting the truth. You sit here pretending to defend Britain while undermining it every day." The Speaker shouted again. "Order! The Prime Minister will maintain decorum." Starmer ignored him. He kept shouting, words lost under the rising noise. His microphone cut out, but cameras kept rolling. Every expression, every gesture, every flash of fury, captured and broadcast worldwide. The Speaker made the decision rarely seen in modern hearings. The Prime Minister will withdraw from the chamber. The room went silent. Starmer froze, disbelief on his face. Two officers approached. He protested weakly, voice breaking. "You can't be serious." "I am," the Speaker replied. "This chamber will not tolerate disorder." The footage ran unedited across international networks. Britain's leader escorted out of a foreign congressional hearing, head lowered, jaw clenched. The symbolism was devastating. Farage sat unmoved, flipping his folder closed as the Prime Minister disappeared from view. The time the feed ended, social media had erupted. In 10 minutes, Washington's Starmer meltdown hit #1 globally. Farage exposed him followed seconds later. News anchors repeated the scene on loop, Starmer shouting, Farage silent, security moving in. Commentators called it the most humiliating moment in modern British diplomacy. Every major broadcaster switched to live analysis. BBC ran a banner. Prime Minister removed from international hearing. Sky News called it unprecedented. CNN labelled it a total breakdown of composure. On ITV, a split-screen replay showed Farage's calm expression beside Starmer's red face. The contrast became a symbol. Across Westminster, phones vibrated with alerts. Ministers watched the footage in silence, aware that one moment had erased years of careful image management. In Labour headquarters, chaos replaced strategy. Staff shouted over one another in the war room. "Who leaked those documents?" one demanded. Another replied, "It doesn't matter who leaked them, he lost it on camera." Screens flickered with polls, graphs, and raw video loops. Every refresh brought a new headline. Newsrooms churned commentary faster than the government could respond. Farage's composure became the dominant talking point. Pundits described it as poise under fire. The Prime Minister's behaviour was framed as unfit for high office. Within hours, opposition MPs filed formal letters demanding an inquiry into conduct unbecoming of a Prime Minister. The Speaker's office confirmed it had received multiple written complaints from international delegates about disruptive behaviour. By midnight, pollsters released emergency data. Labour's approval dropped 11 points overnight. Reform UK soared to historic highs. Commentators on both sides admitted the numbers looked irreversible. The meltdown wasn't just political, it was personal. The footage reduced Starmer's leadership to a meme, while Farage's stillness transformed him into a model of control. At sunrise, outside the capital, Farage faced reporters. Cameras lined the steps, lights flashing against polished marble. His tone was calm. "What Britain witnessed yesterday wasn't victory or defeat," he said. "It was character revealed under pressure. The people saw who stayed composed and who lost control. They saw truth, not titles." The soundbite ran on loop all day. That sentence detonated across the political landscape. Within an hour, Reform UK's donation portal crashed. The servers couldn't handle the flood. Tens of thousands joined the party overnight. Membership graphs spiked vertically. Volunteers opened temporary offices in Manchester, Bristol and Glasgow. Local candidates who once struggled to raise a few £100s were suddenly receiving national funding. International networks seized the story. Fox News described it as a British political reset. France 24 called it the moment Westminster met its populist mirror. CNN's headline read, "Composure defeats power." Commentators who once mocked Farage now analysed his tone, posture and delivery. Editorials called him disciplined, measured and credible. The transformation was total. Within 24 hours, Farage's image shifted from provocateur to statesman. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't left his chair. That restraint became power. Inside Downing Street, silence replaced activity. Starmer had not been seen publicly since the incident. Officially, the press office cited health and stress management. Off the record, aides said he refused to speak until polling stabilised. Cabinet ministers gathered for emergency talks under the pretext of discussing economic recovery. Every journalist in Westminster knew what that meant: succession planning. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper met privately with Rachel Reeves. Angela Rayner's car was spotted entering number 10 through a side gate. Multiple MPs described the atmosphere as the calm before political execution. No one wanted to be the first to move, but everyone was moving. By evening, the crowd outside Downing Street had doubled. Some held signs reading Farage for Britain. Others waved banners that said, "Keep calm, save the Union." Reporters broadcast live from the barricades as chants echoed down Whitehall. Police kept the groups apart, but the image of division defined the night. Across London, pubs replayed the confrontation on mounted televisions. Every replay drew the same reaction: laughter, disbelief, applause. The humiliation had become entertainment. On talk radio, callers debated whether Starmer should resign or apologise. One veteran caller summed it up: "You can't lead a nation when you've lost your temper on live feed." The pound dipped again, not from policy, but perception. Investors called it instability pricing. For the first time, foreign media questioned Britain's capacity to lead itself. In Washington, officials declined to comment. The silence spoke louder than criticism. By the second morning, Farage's rise was measurable. Reform UK's polling reached 25% nationally. Conservative strategists panicked. One Tory MP said privately, "He's no longer an outsider, he's the alternative." Editorial boards that once dismissed him now featured op-eds titled, "A New Centre of Gravity." In media studios, analysts replayed his press conference frame by frame. They pointed out his lack of notes, his relaxed posture, the simplicity of his phrases. Every detail was dissected as evidence of control. His message, truth before politics, became a tagline on merchandise and banners. Meanwhile, Downing Street released a statement at 2 p.m. The Prime Minister continues to focus on his duties and will address the nation in due course. The wording only confirmed weakness. Markets interpreted "in due course" as "not soon." That night, drone shots showed the streets of London lit by protest fires. Crowds outside Parliament sang the anthem. Others carried posters of Farage shaking hands with American senators, captioned "Leadership Britain Needs." Television anchors called it a country split by a single broadcast. Inside Labour headquarters, aides debated whether to delay the next press conference. Some argued for damage control, others said waiting looked cowardly. The final decision was postponed. That choice sealed the narrative: Farage active, Starmer hiding. In 3 days, the political balance of Britain shifted. Party loyalty blurred. Voters who had never supported Farage now called him steady under fire. In northern towns once considered Labour heartlands, pollsters found majority sympathy for Reform UK. The opposition that once mocked him now studied him. Political scientists described the event as the first viral dethroning of a Prime Minister. They argued that the confrontation didn't just expose one man's temper, it showed how instant media can dismantle authority faster than elections ever could. The footage wasn't politics, It was theatre that rewrote history in real time. By week's end, Starmer remained out of sight. Rumours spread of resignation drafts and internal votes. Every network ended coverage with the same image: Farage walking through airport terminals, surrounded by cameras, smiling slightly, but saying nothing. By week's end, Starmer was still silent and Farage was everywhere. The footage replayed non-stop, reshaping British politics in real time. What started as a clash became a collapse, a Prime Minister undone by his own temper. Crowds chanted outside Downing Street, polls flipped overnight, and one question echoed through the nation: has Britain already chosen its next leader?